Well, on to our next story now, and scooters like these are back in fashion, bringing back all sorts of memories for anyone who was into the mods music scene. And one of those people was radio presenter John Holmes. Well, now he's uncovered a remarkable link between the cult film Quadrophenia and the East Midlands. Well, we sent John on a scooter to Skegness, where he discovered that the past has a nasty habit of catching up with you.
Try to put us to down. Talking about my generation, just because we get around. Talking about my generation, things they do look awful. Talking about my generation, I hope I die before I get old. Talking about my generation.
I'm John Holmes, and I'm a mod. Well, it used to be 40 years ago. I suppose I could have been a rocker, but my mate Paul owned a Parker and he had a Lambretta, so I became a mod. Now, part of the soundtrack of our lives came from The Who, and they did a rock opera called Quadrophenia. The film was made all based down south. And one of the amazing things I found out is a lot of the stories actually happened here in this region, in Nottingham, Newark, and here in Skegness. Quadrophenia was the musical story of a mod kid with problems. And after all, The Who were the original mod band. But back in the early 60s, what was mod?
There was three elements to mod as far as I can see. There were the clothes, the music and the scooters. But all three of them formed a seamless pageant.
Like me, Alan Fletcher was a mod in the early 60s and later on decided to write down some of his experiences in the East Midlands.
There was a huge scene in most of the big cities, Nottingham, Derby, Sleaford, Stamford, Grantham. They all had their mod contingent.
We used to hang out at the Brit, the Boat and the Beachcomber, but the moddest club in Nottingham was the Dungeon in Stamford Street.
I remember once coming out of it on a Sunday night. It was midsummer and it was a warm night, and I stood on the steps and I looked up and down Stamford Street, and it was just full of scooters with kids sitting on them, tinkering with them, and it was one of my lasting images of the 60s. It was just absolutely beautiful.
Pete Townsend of The Who became interested in using Alan's stories in a film based on the Quadrophenia album.
I wrote loads of television plays, and I wrote one in the early 70s called Two Stroke Sonata, and it was basically about my story of the 60s mods. I sent it down to Townsend because I knew he was into films, and I put a PS on it, on the letter. I'll write you a script for Quadrophenia if you're interested. Nothing really came of it for a few months, and then Townsend got in touch with me, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Alan became a story consultant for Quadrophenia, and his mod experiences inspired scenes for the film.
Oh, look at him! Doesn't he look smart?
Oh,
Look at the scooter!
So the beach at Skegness, Alan?
Yep.
That must bring back a few memories to me.
It sure does.
In the film, it's the pebbles of Brighton Beach. Here we got the beautiful sound of Skegness, but it all happened here as well, didn't it?
Yes, it did. We used to come to the beaches at Skegness, and like a lot of other kids came to Clacton. That was the mecca for the bank holiday weekends. You knew that was the place to be. That was where the action would be.
And that's where the stories came from.
That's where the stories came from. I mean, the pier, the sand. I can still smell it now. I can still feel the itch of the sand beneath my fingernails.
Looking out to sea, Alan, reminds me of one of the scenes in the book, Sleeping Rough on the Beach. Now that came from you, didn't it?
Cheap.
Yes, it did. The piece where Dave and Chalky, I think it was, went off after the gig at the Brighton Aquarium to find some sleeping accommodation. They ended up in a shack which pitch black when they wandered into it. Somebody was in there, but it was a crowd of rockers which they only found out when they were getting up in the morning.
Get a move on. I've heard there's a few mods of that.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
That actually happened to a friend of mine, Bernard Locke.
era was the year of the mods and rockers and of the hooliganism, vandalism and fighting which often walked with them.
The mods' bitter enemies were the bikers of the day, the rockers. They hated the mods for their obsession with style and fashion.
By the way they dressed, the makeup and that they have on them, and the eyeshadow, and all boots and that. Sometimes I fancy them myself.
This rivalry led to violence at the seaside in the summer of '64. In the film, one of the most disturbing scenes is when the rocker gets caught by the mods and is beaten up.
Yeah, that was one of my storylines, and I thought it had to be in because it just showed the way that Jimmy, in the film, as a mod, couldn't choose Dave, his friend, the rocker. And it was quite a harrowing sequence, but I'm glad they left it in because it did show that animosity between the two groups, the two tribes, so to speak.
Alan took me to the Motown Weekender here in Skegness for a taste of mod music. But before we can hit the dance floor, well, we have to look the part.
I'm in with the in crowd. I go where the in crowd goes. I'm in with the in crowd, and I know what the in crowd knows.
Most of the clubs had really great DJs, and I think they used to just source the music from imports because most of the stuff you couldn't buy in the shops. The music you listened to basically was black American soul imports. You know, the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, that sort of stuff was just absolutely fantastic. But where they got it from, I've no idea.
I was amazed to think that a cult film like Quadrophenia was influenced by real events here in the East Midlands. And it's still going on. It was as if the whole thing was a wild dream. So, Alan, Quadrophenia in Skegness.
It all happened here, John.
I can't believe what we saw.
So what?
Can you see the real me?